So before filming my Pretty Hate Machine video, I realized that at some imperceptible point, I re-entered my Nine Inch Nails phase, and so here we are back again with their second record. So Nine Inch Nails' first album, Pretty Hate Machine, came out in 1989, and it was a big hit. That album 100% featured a lot of aggression and anger and hatred and rage in the form of songs like Terrible Lie or Head Like a Hole, but on the whole, that album is very much, like I said, a dark new wave album. So basically the story is that to support that album, Trent Reznor assembled a live band and they went around and they played songs from Pretty Hate Machine, but they were way more aggressive on stage than they were on the actual record. I think that in spite of some of the anger and aggression found on that first record, I think that the synth pop elements and the danceable beats overwhelm the anger and aggression for me. There's a lot of angst and bitterness on that record, but at the same time, I don't think that anyone would have expected that the next thing to come out from Nine Inch Nails would be a metal record. And Broken really is the only Nine Inch Nails release that I feel comfortable describing as metal. I think Nine Inch Nails often gets lumped in with metal by people who don't know what they're talking about, quite frankly. I think first and foremost, Nine Inch Nails are an industrial group or an alternative group, that's also fine. But metal, I wouldn't really call them that. And that's not meant to be a quality thing. I'm not saying that they are better or worse for not being a metal band. I'm just saying that it's inaccurate to label them as such. And so that's why I think it's important to note that this is the only release from them that I would feel comfortable calling metal. I think that more than any other Nine Inch Nails album, Broken features a large emphasis on guitars and guitar riffs, and I think it features a heaviness that would not have been anticipated from someone who had only heard Pretty Hate Machine. And I think it's important to realize why Broken is such an angry record as opposed to Pretty Hate Machine. As I mentioned, the live band was pretty aggressive. Trent Reznor himself has said that the live band was a huge influence on this album. Or technically, Broken is an EP. It's 6 songs plus 2 covers at the end, so 8 songs in total. But at the same time, it still feels like a very important release in the Nine Inch Nails catalog. Oftentimes, EPs are just kind of garbage. They're just kind of stopgaps between records, but this one is something special. It's something that is a work of art in and of itself. So you get the anger and aggression from the live band, and you also get it because a lot of interlabel strife that Trent Reznor was experiencing. I don't know if that's a word, interlabel. Basically, he was fighting with the record label because he was signed to TVT Records, who was a company known for doing like bops and jingles and crap like that, commercials. So I don't know why Trent Reznor would have signed to them in the first place, but whatever. The story is that Pretty Hate Machine did way better than the record label anticipated. And so TVT Records wanted to cage Trent Reznor and force him to make a record that sounded exactly like Pretty Hate Machine. They wanted to make him make Pretty Hate Machine Part 2. Which I'm sure would have been wonderful, but that's not what he wanted to do. So this was a record that was recorded in secret, without the notice of the record label. Trent Reznor wasn't supposed to be recording this album at all. It wasn't part of his contract. He wasn't allowed to do this. And in fact, I don't think that it's something that would have ever been released had Interscope not bought him out of his TVT Records contract. So I imagine that if you have a record that does well and you are proud of, and then someone comes and tells you what you can or can't do for your next record, I assume that brings about only frustration. I don't blame Trent Reznor at all for being angry and pissed off that his record label was trying to cage him and force him to make a certain kind of record. So in some ways, Broken is the anti-Pretty Hate Machine. It takes the anger of Pretty Hate Machine and brings it to the surface, and while Pretty Hate Machine is pretty submissive, it's a pretty submissive record in the sense that Trent Reznor is singing about people who have overpowered him or who he has given control to. With Broken, it feels almost like the opposite, where he's taken some of the power back for himself, and now that he has the power, he's pissed off. And I can't help but wonder if the title of the record, Broken, is a reference to Pretty Hate Machine. In other words, the Pretty Hate Machine is now broken, and this is what you get. I think machine imagery shows up a lot on the Downward Spiral, and so I think that if you hear machine mentioned in a Nine Inch Nails song, that's what your mind immediately goes to. But I think it's important to remember that that crap started all the way at the beginning with Pretty Hate Machine, and it continues on to this record, where there are a lot more machine references. So without further ado, let's talk about the album track by track. So the first song is Pinion. Basically, this is just an intro. Essentially, track 1 is just a big build-up. It's something that's just trying to hype you up for the rest of the album, and it works. Oftentimes, the band will start their live shows by playing this track from tape, and then going into Wish, which is the next song on the album, or Terrible Lie, or Mr. Self-Destruct, something like that. So track 2 is Wish, which is the first real song on the record. Like I mentioned, there are 6 tracks in Broken. and then 2 covers at the end, which Trent Reznor seems to not really consider a part of the core album. Wish is a very cool track because the guitars in the verses sound kind of muffled. There's a filter over them. I don't know what it's called, but it's great. But during the verses, the guitars sound kind of suppressed until the chorus hits, at which point they blow up. And you're hit with the full force of the guitars, and there's a real power to the chorus. Trent Reznor sings about wishing for something real, something true. There's a real sense of instability in these lyrics, where basically Trent Reznor sings about not being able to trust you, whoever that you is. He sings about not being able to trust God, bringing us back to the familiar themes of Terrible Lie. One line that has always stood out to me, and let me make sure I get it right: no new tale to tell, 26 years on my way to hell. I shot that previous clip like 7 times just so that way I could say it right. No new tale to tell, tale to tell. But there's a real fury in this track, and there's a real sense of being fed up with the world and with everything in it. I think that if Terrible Lie off the first record is about feeling hurt or wounded even, that you can't seem to find meaning in this world, then I think that Wish is about being angry about the fact that you can't find meaning in this world. Wish is so much more volatile and violent. I think one thing that's very interesting about Wish is that this album came out in 1992. You know what else came out in 1992? Wish by The Cure. There's no connection other than they are both called Wish, and they're just both bands I love. So, fun fact. Track 3 on the album is Last. Last is one of my favorite Nine Inch Nails songs. It just has such a banger guitar riff. There's a part at about 2 minutes when the guitar kind of drops out, and then it comes back in at about 2:15, 2:20, and it just absolutely rips. Every single time I hear that part, it's like the dopamine kicks in. It feels so good. This isn't meant to last. This is for right now. That's an idea that I've always found very fascinating and interesting, because I think there are a lot of things in life that we maybe try to make last forever. But the reality is nothing lasts forever, and I think there are certain situations that are temporary. In fact, everything is kind of temporary if you consider, the inevitable heat death of the universe, but we're not going to get into that. You guys ever think about how, the sun's going to explode one day? This isn't meant to last, this is for right now is such a good idea, and I always try to remember it. I think in this song, the idea is that things aren't meant to last, this is for right now, because we're all gonna die one day, or this record is not gonna ever be put out, or something like that. I think that within the context of this song and this record, it's intended to be a nihilistic negative thought. But I don't know, my takeaway from it, this isn't meant to last, this is for right now. Sometimes I think it's good to just try to enjoy things and to enjoy them while they last and to not try to make them last forever. And so that's how I interpret the lyric, even though I know that's not what the song is about. But I don't know, that's what I think about. This song has some really disgusting lyrics on it that I absolutely love. Fresh blood through tired skin, new sweat to drown me in. Dress up this rotten carcass just to make it look alive. I'm a really big fan of dark and disgusting and kind of gross lyrics like that. It almost reminds me of Pornography by The Cure. I love that album, so talk about it any chance I can get. This song is also very noteworthy for being the first Nine Inch Nails song to reference pigs. Pigs, we get what pigs deserve. Basically, it's not so important for this album, but on the next album, on the Downward Spiral, pigs is a running motif. And I think this album actually makes a lot of sense if you look at it as a precursor to the Downward Spiral, which is exactly what it is. But I think if you look at it within the context of the Downward Spiral and you compare some of the lyrics on the two, I think it makes sense. Even the ending lyrics to this, I want you to make me, I want you to take me, I want you to break me, then I want you to throw me away. That sounds a lot like Eraser off the Downward Spiral. But really, Last is a favorite of mine. I love it. Track 4 is Help Me, I Am in Hell. Basically, this song is just a nice little interlude. Or nice isn't the right word for it, it's somewhat anxious. I read somewhere that this song title is a reference to Hellraiser 2, which I haven't seen. So if that's true, then here's a picture of the scene that's being referenced. If it's not true, then I'm gonna cut this and I'm not gonna leave it in. I guess, I don't know. Help Me I Am in Hell is a less than 2 minute little instrumental track. Even though it's just a brief little rest, I think that it helps the album to feel a little bit dynamic, because I think this is one of the only Nine Inch Nails releases that is just straight energy all the way through. There's no slowing down, there are no piano ballads, none of that, just anger. So Help Me I Am in Hell sounds a little dissonant, sounds a little dank, sounds a little dark. It's not a track I fully appreciated when I was younger, but I like it a lot now. Next up we have Happiness and Slavery. This is my favorite song off the album. This is easily one of my favorite Nine Inch Nails songs. Basically the verses to this song are just very abrasive and rough and industrial sounding, and then the chorus is more bouncy because you have this very groovy bass line. Happiness and Slavery seems to me to be a song about putting your head in the sand, willfully ignoring the truth. It seems to me to be about having the truth hidden from you and being okay with it. Or rather, it's a song that is critiquing that sort of mindset. It's a song that's mocking that type of mindset. Basically, ignorance is bliss, and people like having bliss. They don't care if they're ignorant. I always thought that the lyric to the song was, "You can find happiness in slavery," since that's what the song is called. It's called Happiness in Slavery. But according to this lyrics sheet, it is, "You can find happiness is slavery." And so I find that to be a really fascinating idea, that you can find happiness is slavery. I think that's probably alluding to the fact that there are certain things that you can have in your life that cost you more than they gain you. I think that if you want a very mundane example of what I think the song is probably talking about, then I think it's cool to have a nice car, but how much do you really want to pay each month for the car payment? Is the pleasure of having a nice vehicle worth the pain of working extra to pay it off? Or, something like that. That's kind of what I'm thinking the song is about, but really I think it's about bigger things than that. I think it's just about life in general. I think it's about how people are willing to take the safe option because that is what they are told will lead them to happiness, but in reality, it doesn't always. I think that if I had taken every single piece of advice given to me by a parent or a mentor or a leader or an adult whenever I was younger, then I think I would be absolutely miserable now. The things that make me happy now and made me happy when I was younger were not things that people thought very highly of. But at the same time, I think that there is a freedom in living authentically to your true self and in living out the life that you want to live. I think that living out a life that someone else has planned out for you can make you happy potentially, but at the same time, I can't help but feel that you'll be miserable in the long run. Going back to some of the gross lyrics, the song ends with, "Human junk, just words and so much skin. Stick my hands through the cage of this endless routine. Just some flesh caught in this big broken machine." So there's a second interpretation of where the title Broken comes from. Like I was saying, I wonder if it could be referring to the Pretty Hate machine of the first record, or I wonder if it's just using the same piece of imagery, that being a machine, just in a different context. I wonder if the machine in question is more like Rage Against the Machine, it's more like society as a whole. But yeah, some flesh caught in this big broken machine, it's not a fun image. The final track of Broken is Gave Up. Essentially, I just see this track as being about how you've screwed up your life and then being awakened to that fact and realizing that your life is in flames around you. Smashed up my sanity, smashed up my integrity, smashed up what I believed and smashed up what's left of me. Smashed up my everything, smashed up all that was true, gonna smash myself to pieces, I don't know what to do. In essence, everything is screwed up, everything sucks. Still cannot fix this broken machine. Again, you have the machine imagery. The song is solid, but at the same time, it's never been one of my favorite Nine Inch Nails tracks. I prefer pretty much the entire rest of the album to this song. And so that is basically the note that the album is supposed to end on. 6 tracks, that's Broken, but not really. There are 2 more tracks. So basically the core Broken album is 6 tracks, running from Pinion to Gave Up. These are all original songs. They are meant to be their own little compact piece. It's about 20 minutes, it's great. Whenever the album dropped, there were 2 more songs included. On the first CD pressing of Broken, you had the CD and then you had a smaller mini CD. Later CD pressings of Broken just included the final 2 tracks on the little CD, just at the end of the bigger CD, so they would be tracks 98 and 99, with everything in between being a bunch of silence. If you have the vinyl record, like I do, then you have a big actual vinyl record for the first 6 tracks. Then you have a cute little 7-inch for the final 2 tracks, which I think the point of that really is just to make it clear that the final 2 songs are separate and distinct from the main album as the whole. The first of the 2 songs, aka track 7, is Physical. This is a cover of the Adam Ant song. The Nine Inch Nails version is much heavier. Trent Reznor recorded the guitar and then he slowed it down to make it really heavy. There's one other Nine Inch Nails song that I can name that does this. If you can list it in the comments, you win a gold star. But I really like the way that the slowing down of the guitar was handled on this album, because Trent Reznor's dog was growling and barking during the recording of the guitar part. And so you hear the slowed down growls and barks in the song. But I think it's really great. I think it's really funny, but at the same time, I think that it makes the song sound very unique and very cool because of it. I think it's just such a cute little detail to have your dog on the album. But yeah, the cover of Physical on this album is much more lustful and intense than Adam Ant's original, which, this is by Trent Reznor, so I guess it's to be expected. And then track 8, which is the final track on the album, but for realsies, is Suck. This song originally showed up on a recording by Pigface, and Trent Reznor sings on it, but that version, I listened to it for the first time ever today, the first time in full. I had heard it before, but I'd never listened to it all the way through. Listened to it at the gym earlier today. It's kind of bad, it's not great. Basically, the original version of the song just has drums and Trent Reznor's vocals and a little bit of bass. This version of the song is much better than the original. It features the same kind of guitars that you see on the rest of the album, and there's a really groovy, great bass line to it. Trent Reznor sings about how there is no God up in the sky tonight, no sign of heaven anywhere in sight, and it reminds me a lot of a song off Pretty Hate Machine. There's a song off that album where Trent Reznor sings about how maybe God can cover up his eyes, but I don't remember which song it is. Is it The Only Time? Is it That's What I Get? Is it The Only Time? But anyways, it feels like the same kind of lyrical ground, just the same kind of like lustfulness. Whenever I'm discussing lust in the context of 9 Inch Nails, 9 times out of 10, it's not, oh, I'm so sexy and attractive. It's more like lust, like I want you because I need you to cover up my weaknesses or cover up the things about myself that I don't like. In 9 Inch Nails songs, it's always like, I hate myself, and so I'm using sex to get away from myself and to forget about myself, and I'm not happy and I'm miserable and I hate myself, but at least we can have sex. It's always that sort of thing in a 9 Inch Nails song. But I had this weird thought earlier that this song is probably closest to Pretty Hate Machine than any other track on the album. Just in terms of lyrics and also in terms of groove. Because yeah, there are heavy guitars on the chorus, but at the same time, the verses are kind of groovy and remind me of something like Sanctified. And this song isn't one of my all-time favorites, but at the same time, I like it. I enjoy it. And so there you have Broken by 9 Inch Nails. There was no touring done in support of this record. Basically, they made this record and then immediately went straight into the Downward Spiral. The Downward Spiral, by the way, is considered 9 Inch Nails' greatest record by some people. Some people say it's their best record. I really love the Downward Spiral, but I also really love the Fragile, and I also really love the EP trilogy. There are a lot of great things by 9 Inch Nails, but at the very least, the Downward Spiral is certainly the most experimental and influential 9 Inch Nails record. So I won't say anything else about the Downward Spiral. We'll cover it at a later date, maybe. I don't know. Part of me wants to cover the 9 Inch Nails records out of order, but then part of me wants to cover them in order. See, I have a lot to say about Not the Actual Events and Add Violence and Bad Witch, but at the same time, I don't know that I want to jump across everything else in their discography just to get to those and then kind of go back and forth between the older stuff and the newer stuff. I don't really know if I want to do that. So I might just cover the 9 Inch Nails records in order, or just cover the ones that I find most interesting. Honestly though, I could like just talk about 9 Inch Nails for days. Like if you told me that I had to make 20 videos in a row about 9 Inch Nails, I could do it. I could do it 100%. So at the end of the Pretty Hate Machine video, I gave you some recommendations. So I'm gonna try to do that with this record. Basically, like I said, this is the only 9 Inch Nails record that I would consider to be a metal record. And so because of that, I would recommend actual metal. I would recommend stuff like Metallica or Megadeth, bands that would have been big around that time. I would recommend Health, especially Volume 4 Slaves of Fear or Rat Wars, because I love Rat Wars. Volume 4 Slaves of Fear is heavier, but at the same time, Rat Wars has some more guitar riffy stuff. Anytime I stick it on like a Spotify radio for 9 Inch Nails, they play Rob Zombie, and I guess that works. You know, something like Dragula or Thunderkiss 65 or whatever. I don't know, I like Rob Zombie. The Dillinger Escape Plan has some stuff that's more electronic. I would recommend Unretrofied or Phone Home. Honestly, if you like this album, you could probably get into early Slipknot, like their first album specifically. Or you could probably even get into something like Motionless in White. If you like Ministry, you could go for them. I would probably recommend Underneath by Code Orange. You could probably get into Loathe. At this point with the recommendations, I feel like I'm straying way too far away from the industrial metal sound of Broken, and I'm just getting more into metal, which, I mean, yeah, I guess if you like Broken, then just go and listen to metal. So, I meant to say this last time, but if you have any recommendations, feel free to drop them and I'll check them out. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I won't. It's a game. But yeah, Broken, phenomenal record. I love it. It's a short listen. It's only like half an hour. And I would definitely say to check out Not the Actual Events by 9 Inch Nails. Check out the Downward Spiral and check out Not the Actual Events. Not the Actual Events is just one of my favorite 9 Inch Nails records. I absolutely adore it. And I think it's the closest thing that we have gotten to a Broken follow-up, though it is much more gothy, I think. So yeah, if you like Broken, check out the Downward Spiral and With Teeth and Not the Actual Events and The Slip and just the rest of 9 Inch Nails' discography, of course. Just check it all out. So it's midnight, so thank you for watching. Have a nice night. Bye.